Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
It's you and the senorita. Woofer blowing up the tweeter, cause it's me up in the speaker. Back in the mama seat, top down like a player. And the sound up in your ears, it is the dopest rhyme. Say I run a game like a cheater.
So yesterday was Merle Haggard's 79th birthday. It was also the last day that he got to spend on Earth. Now, if you've listened to the show for any length of time, you know that I'm not necessarily a country and or Western guy. You might have heard jokes about those records selling so well because country music fans don't have the technical know-how and opposable thumbs necessary to steal music on the internet. But to me, there are some singers or some voices that absolutely 100% transcend genre. There's some singers who I feel like they let you hear every single moment that they have lived in every single word of every single song that comes out of their mouths. I think Merle Haggard was one of those singers. The Okie from Muskogee is what they call him. A poet, I think, for the common man, for the working class. Mama Tried, widely regarded by a lot of people who I've talked to since he passed away yesterday, viewed as being one of the greatest songs of all time. There was a beautiful quote. He'd been struggling with health problems for a little while. There was a beautiful quote from him. And a picture of a guy on his knees outside of his tour bus in Riverside, California, a little while back. And there was a guy outside Merle Haggard's tour bus on his knees in prayer. And he said, "Thank you to people that came out tonight in Riverside. Sadly, I'm not strong enough yet. I'm just not strong enough yet. This man was praying behind my bus, and it made me realize how much you all care. Thank you so much." And there was an amazing, amazing thing that he said once. And I'm glad that one of his last memories was seeing how much people cared. Because he said once, "I've lived through 17 stays in penal institutions, incarceration in a penitentiary, 5 marriages, bankruptcy, a broken back, brawls, shooting incidents, swindling, sickness, the death of loved ones, and more. I've heard tens of thousands chant my name when I couldn't hear the voice of my own soul. I wondered if God was listening, and I was sure that no one else was." So we'll get into our show. The great Christian James Hand is joining us today, and we're going to talk to him about all sorts of things up to and including his experience with Guru from Gang Starr in England and the iration that came about from having to pay for condiments. It's an amazing story, and I can't wait for you to hear it. But for now, we're just going to play out on a song that seems especially appropriate. If I Could Only Fly, Merle Haggard. Good night.
Sing it for us?
Try.
Okay.
I almost felt you touching me just now. I wish I knew which way to turn and go. Feels so good, and then I feel so bad. I wonder what I ought to do. But if I could only fly, if I could only fly, I'd bid this place goodbye to come and be with you. But I can hardly stand, and I got nowhere to run. the sinking sun, and one more lonely night. The wind keeps blowing somewhere every day. Tell me things get better somewhere up the way. Just dismal thinking on dismal days. And sad songs for us to bear. If I could only fly, if I could only fly, if we could only fly, there'd be no more lonely nights. You know, sometimes I write happy songs, then some little thing goes wrong. I wish they all could make you smile. Coming home soon and I want to stay. Maybe we can somehow get away. I wish you could come with me when I go again. But if I could only fly, if I could only fly, I'd bid this place goodbye to come and be with you. But I can hardly stand, and I got nowhere to run. Above the sinking sun, and one more lonely night.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
I do what I want, when I want, how I want. Every day you're going and working, running that rat race at that pace and that place will leave a bad taste for anyone, everyone working day after day. So buddy, I gotta say for you, there's gotta be a better way, yeah. And you do what they told ya, company man, feel it, a mindless little soldier. How can you live like that and maintain your composure before it's begun? Your life's already freaking over, yeah. I do what I want, when I want.
Can I hear myself? Yeah, that's a button to push. So, I think at one point I heard Eddie. It was either Eddie or Alex Van Halen. I think it was Eddie Van Halen. I heard him describe Van Halen's music in the following way. He said, basically what we do is musically falling down the stairs and somehow landing on your feet. And that's an expression that I've clutched to my heart ever since, and I can't think of a person that it applies to more appropriately than our guest on the show today. His entire life is an example of that. He's living a life of freeform jazz. I would just have to call him a bit of a Generation X Renaissance guy. He's a record producer. He's an engineer. He is a radio personality extraordinaire. He is a spoken word artist. He does it all, and he does it all so well. Welcome back to the show, Christian James Hand.
Oh, that's
Thank you so much for hanging out.
That is an awesome way of describing somebody's life. Thank you for that. But it sounds it resonates. It sounds like what I've been doing, falling down the stairs. So thank you for that.
Well, you forgot the landing on your feet part.
True,
Because you're
true.
like beyond up in the game at the moment. You are on a very big radio station, which will remain nameless because either you're going to get fired or I'm going to get fired if we keep doing this and the wrong people notice. But
sure.
like you've got an awful lot going on. But here today, you are here to share a tale with us of Guru from Gangstar. Seminal rapper. Christian James Hand was also a member of the Gravediggers at one point. He was down with the whole Gravediggers Wu-Tang Clan clique. He had an alternate life where he was known as MC Skullcap, or where he was better known in Scandinavia, MC Skullenkappen,
Yes.
because he wound up replacing the RZA on a tour where the RZA decided, I don't like the food, I'm going home, or something of that nature.
Something of those natures.
Yeah, and if you haven't heard when Christian was on the show telling us that story, do yourself a favor and check it out. After he got off the air last time, he was like, "Oh man, on that tour, Guru from Gangstar about lost his damn mind with regard to some condiments." And I was like, that story you just told us, is there a way you can do it on the radio that won't get us fired, without all the F-bombs, N-bombs, and S-bombs?
Yeah.
Can you think of a way to sanitize that and then come back and tell us? And he has, so he's gonna. Right now, though, quick question, Funkhauser, did you say your grandpa worked?
Was Wally Black. He's a country singer from the 50s. You call him rockabilly now, but back sometimes, if you go on YouTube and search for Wally Black, you get some hip-hop guy, and you get my grandpa.
No.
Yeah, but he's got like 12, 15 songs. They're all twangy, and they sound just like Merle Haggard. So, yeah, that's kind of my childhood right there.
That's so cool. Like, Funkhauser is the most unassuming guy in the world, and then you dig a little deeper, you peel back a layer of the onion, you're like, wait, what? Huh? Didn't you used to go to gigs and help him set up, or wasn't
I was
there a
like
story about
6, 7, 8 years old, but he's an Elvis impersonator now at that time. So I was doing a different kind of setup.
It's bananas. Christian, if you haven't heard the stories on the show, Funkhauser will answer questions. What did you do this weekend? Nothing. Oh, wait, no, I went to a party with 15 porn stars, and I had to leave when they started touching me too much. Oh, really? Oh, okay. Hey, anybody ever had sex on an airplane? No, not me. Oh, wait, there's...
You really?
Yeah.
I know, right?
Come on.
It was a while ago.
Whether it was a while ago or not, dinosaurs are a while ago. It's still pretty impressive.
No, but you don't
the
understand.
time frame doesn't matter, dude.
Yeah.
All right, so the essence of the story, just the fact that he has done that.
It wasn't a famous one or anything.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Funkhauser, if... let me just, give you some context here, Christian. I asked, we were talking about this on the show, anybody ever joined the Mile High Club? And I was like, Funkhauser, yeah, have you ever? And he was like, no. And then we get off the air, he's like, oh, I totally forgot. There was this one time I did. I was like, really? Where? When? He was like, I was on a private jet with a porn star. Stories that Funkhauser forgets, if it happened to you or me or anyone else, it would be the story. That you might not realize
at this point. Yes.
I was. We were talking about a specific town. I don't even remember the town. And Funkhauser was like, "Oh yeah, that's a cool city. A building I designed is there." I was like, "Huh?" He's like, "Well, yeah. Before I was in radio, I was an architect." I was like, "Hold on a second.
Is that true too?
Yeah.
You designed a building?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
3 of them.
You designed 3 buildings.
Yes.
Where do these buildings stand?
Oxnard, Calabasas, Ventura.
What kind
Southern
of buildings
California. Well, they're concrete tilt-up buildings, which is what you specifically call them, but it's like 4 walls, pretty much like, John Deere factory. But there was one, I had a nightmare. I was on the Gravitron, the carnival ride that spins around, and I woke up and I drew it, and that building is up somewhere.
blues guys out there in Radioland. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on, come on. That's the way you do what we do. That's the way you do what we do. That's the way you do what we do. You do what we do. You do what we do. That's the way you do what we do. That's the way you do what we do. That's the way you do what we do. You do what we do. You do what we do. Well, it's a new one. Here I come again, coming again.
So Christian James Hand is our guest on the show today, Generation X Renaissance guy with strong ties to the hip-hop community. How did any of this happen? You're an English guy that grew up in Long Island, and you wind up being the tour manager for these bands. How?
Well, it really actually is your prior statement about tumbling downstairs and landing on my feet. I was working for somewhere, and I bumped into a guy who asked me to do lights for him at a nightclub, and I did that, and then he ended up becoming the tour manager for a group called PM Dawn, and I did lights for them, and then I ended up becoming sort of they didn't have a lighting guy budget, so I became their stage manager / drum tech at that time, and then went on to do that until that tour ended, and then I started working at the record label, and then I was working at the record label, which was a label called G Street Records, which was the Jungle Brothers and CEO. Mm-hmm. And we had the Gravediggers, I don't know if you remember, like Shakadima, some Pliers. I mean, we had like some really.
I grew up in England in the '90s. Like all of this stuff is a soundtrack to my life, so it blows my mind. It was a soundtrack to my childhood, so it blows my mind that you're talking about having worked with any of it. I think we worked out last time. I went to see Gravediggers at the Camden Palace in London when I was a kid, and you're like, I was there.
Yeah, I was jumping around like an idiot on the stage in my full outfit. Yeah. So from that, I ended up working at the label, and then when the label put out the Gravediggers record, they needed somebody to kind of go on the road with these guys and sort of. And
you were supposed to narc out the Gravediggers?
I was, yeah. I mean, it was that sort of thing where I was kind of asked to be I was the guy who was representing the record label on the tour, and it ended up being that I didn't care about the record label on the tour because I love the guys too much. So I ended up Judasing the record label to the guys instead. So I just sort of blundered into going on the road with them, and then when we were in Europe, the RZA left the tour because he didn't want to do it anymore, and that was when the genius that is Prince Paul decided, as a piece of phenomenal performance art, he would create a white hip hop head sensation out of me, and that was how Skullcap was born. And so we did an amazing tour of Europe, which was us and Jeru the Damager, Public Enemy, Ice Cube, Gangstar, and Arrested Development, who ended up not doing the tour with us. But so it just ended up and it was just incredible, man. Like, as a hip hop fanatic, to be on the road with Cube and Public Enemy alone would have been amazing.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It's like honestly, Chuck D is my There's two reasons why. See, I grew up playing drums. Like, I was given a drum kit when I was like 4 years old because I liked Animal on the Muppet Show, and that was like my bread and butter, to the point where like I got a scholarship to go study jazz percussion at New England Conservatory of Music. And then I heard Chuck D. I was like, F the drums, I want to vocalize. Like that was it. It was like Chuck D and Tom Waits, and like you toured with guys that shaped my life. Like, then that's just a crazy thing to hear. And if you were anything at all like me, it sounds like you were, that just must have been a mind-blowing situation to have been thrown into.
Oh, it was absurd. I mean, there was I was a hip hop fan on Long Island. Obviously in the 80s, like, hip hop isn't on the radio, kids.
Yeah.
So there was only a couple places you could find it, and one of them was DJ Red Alert used to DJ from a place called the Red Zone on, I think it was Kiss FM or something, on a Saturday night. Like in New York, the clubs are open till 4, so it would start at like 10 o'clock and go till 4 in the morning, and I would just sit there with my tape deck in pause record and just grab songs off of DJ Red Alert's set, and I would know from the week before that the next week a track had become hot. Like, I remember the first time Schoolie D's PSK came out of the speakers at me, and I was like, I'm not going to be the same after this. And then, like Curtis Blow's If I Ruled the World, like these are moments, this is when hip-hop's really doing, it's doing what it's supposed to. And it was incredible to then be like, as I might have told on the last one, but we had this bomb threat at the show in Sweden. And I ended up being backstage in this underground bunker. And it was me, Prince Paul, Ice Cube, Chuck D was there. I think J. Rue was there, and a couple of other guys, and they just talked about the old days of hip hop and the Chitlin circuit and being in these like school buses, driving around touring because they didn't even get real buses. I mean, it was absolutely like gobsmacking to think that these are the dudes who are doing this back then, and it was incredible, man. I mean, like they really only toured the South, because it was the only place they were making any headway. But the thought of that and just hearing the stories is incredible, man. I mean, these are dudes that paved the way for everything, that happened next. The pioneers.
It's funny because I never really did the math on this before, but when Fife passed away a little while ago, I was just like, I didn't kind of connect with him being the funky diabetic with the fact that he had actual health problems.
Yeah.
But when Fife passed away, I was like, oh my gosh, he's only like 45 years old, which means, let me do some math here. When Can I Kick It came out, he was a child. Like here's a guy like ruling the world. And like I remember hearing that on the school bus on the way to school in England in, I don't know, probably like the first, second grade, like really, really young, listening to it and be like, this must be some new kind of music, because like my parents brought me up on Led Zeppelin and Steely Dan. And I remember hearing that and being like, this is different, but I like it. It sounds like someone else's record on this record, not realizing what a sample was and what Lou Reed was. But like, I was doing the math. I was just like, if I was that young, Fife was like 10 years older, which means he was still probably high school age while all that stuff was happening, and he became an overnight worldwide sensation. It's crazy to think, right?
Yeah, I mean, that the Low End Theory record is just a game changer. It's like, to me, you got... There's like the Rubber Soul and the Revolver of hip hop are Low End Theory and 3 Feet High and Rising. Like that, those two records are the two records where suddenly the vocabulary of hip hop changes drastically with those two moments. And if you haven't seen it, there's a great Tribe Called Quest documentary shot by Michael Rappaport, the actor. And there's also an incredible documentary on Netflix, I believe, currently, that is the two guys that were on the college radio station in New York. And now I've forgotten their name because weed's a hell of a drug. But it's, Stretch and Bobo, I think. And it's
Stretch and Bobito.
That documentary is insane because it's like these two guys on this college radio station who don't go to the college, who basically start this hip-hop show that sells 700 million records because they had everybody on there. There's an incredible... audio snippet you can find on YouTube of when Big L goes up against a very young Jay-Z live on the air and destroys him. And if you've never heard Big L's rhymes, they're incredible. He has one couplet that is without a doubt my favorite hip-hop couplet of all time, which is, I'm so far ahead of my time, my parents haven't even met yet.
It's amazing.
Which is amazing, dude. Like, to get that much crammed into two lines is absurd. So Big L is somebody that everyone should look into, which is ironically is one of Guru shouts out Big L all the time because they were close, and he has mad respect for his skills. And we never heard that guy do a real record, unfortunately. He passed away before that was done, but Big L would have been a monster had he been allowed to continue doing work.
So you've produced hit alternative rock records. You are involved in classic rock. You do these incredible, like, people should go see Christian in Los Angeles, where he basically gets amazing records and does a live performance of pulling out individual tracks from them, whether it be a Bowie song or a Van Halen song. He goes back and he finds these groundbreaking records, and he'll pull the drum track out of it and be like, check this out. This is what was going on in their life at the time while they were recording this, and this is how this was achieved in the studio. And it's one of the most entertaining things you could ever hope to do. If you happen to be in Los Angeles while Christian is doing this, you should make haste to be one of the people that gets into the room, because they sell out super quick, right? Like,
yeah, it's only 150 people at this. I do it at a rehearsal facility in LA called Swing House, which is a gorgeous place, and they have this one big main room, and I put 150 people in there, and I have these 2 screens up, and I show video, and I have waveforms that you can see, and we just sort of dip in. It's about an hour for each song, and we just go through
Sounds like a
it.
college class. It sounds like you could just go be a musicologist at UCLA or something. If
That's
you wanted
actually my overarching plan for my retirement, is that I would like to be paid to do this full time, so because I can get out of this radio game.
It's amazing. But bearing in mind that you have all this in-depth knowledge, you were part of sort of like a groundbreaking period in hip-hop's history, and you were also very well versed in classic rock. You produced modern hit alternative rock records. Do you feel like, looking back at this sort of time, because like I wonder if it's a sign of me getting old, where I look back at the 90s when I was a kid and go, hey, nothing as good has happened since then. But I honestly feel like there was this moment where it was day and then it was night in music. Everything changed on a dime all of a sudden. Creativity was being embraced because people were being genuinely creative. Low End Theory, 3 Feet High and Rising, bands were making records that didn't sound like records that had come out before. I thought things were very different. I mean, look, they've become run-of-the-mill things that we've all grown accustomed to. But, you look back at records by bands like Metallica or Green Day or the Red Hot Chili Peppers or Rage Against the Machine or Pearl Jam. And wow, that's sort of like, oh God, these guys again. Now, at the time, as a kid, I remember thinking, wow, I haven't heard anything like this before. When I heard Run DMC's Raising Hell, I hadn't heard anything like that before, and it changed my life. And all this sort of stuff, I feel as though kids growing up today haven't had that moment where it was dark and now it's light. It's like they haven't had that game-changing moment. Like, there's some quality stuff floating around and it's all cool, but I don't think it feels to me like that was the last of the surprises we were going to get back then. It feels like we've heard it all before.
Well, it's been one of the interesting things about, I definitely have, because of my father, I have a love for classic rock, in quotes, though I didn't call it that, obviously. It was just my dad's stuff. And being at a classic rock station now and listening to these, basically the musical DNA is being written every day by the songs that I'm hearing. Like, you're hearing it and going, wow, okay. Oh, that thing, I remember now. And the problem that I've started to realize is that this very strange thing, and you got to sort of like understand that culture is a continuum, right? So there are events that happen, and then other events erase them, and then other events absorb them. And one of the things that we're running into now is that Radiohead's Kid A is the last time there is a massive paradigm shift in the sound and approach to musical information. Since then, everything is a photocopy of that, or it's, like, no offense to Royal Blood, but really?
Well,
okay.
And you don't understand, but Royal Blood, when they came out, people were like, wow, this is really different and cool, and these guys are real musicians. It's just, like, Royal Blood were heralded by program directors across the country as the great white hope for, quality. And it was...
Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that it's not good, but what I'm saying is that we've already had the 2-person band with the blues thing that's with the guy and the thing, and like, we've already done this. Like, yeah, he's got an octave pedal on his thing and a bass rig, and great, fantastic. And I totally get that you're doing your own version of it, but it's still a photocopy. And then it's now like, all right, well, it's blues-based rock with a drum machine. Okay, cool. So all you've done is taken a hip-hop thing and then so everything is now like these sort of hybrids of previous sounds. And the next, it's a great quote from what's his name from Radiohead, Tom York, is like the what he's waiting for is the moment that he can plug a cable into the back of his head and you'll be able to hear the music the way he hears it in his head.
That's a great way of describing it.
Because the translation through the machine still robs it of what he's trying to make it sound like. So that, to me, will be like the next paradigm shift will be when you'll actually be able to hear musical thought. But until then, we're sort of trapped in this regurgitation, and it's not the old man on the couch. It's just how it is, man. Like we don't have any paradigm shifts for a while, and now we've just got to settle into it, which is why I think classic rock actually will save the day, believe it or not.
Wow, that's very interesting because, like, I think you're right. I think it's dependent on technology because the last, holy crap, this is completely different. It came about because somebody invented a sampler and a drum machine, and that was the game changer. And I guess we're just waiting on that moment where we can plug straight into the back of our head. Thank you, Christian James Hand.
Now, more AD on the radio.
Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you a musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD again. Nobody rock a party better than me. Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you a musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD again. Nobody rock a party better than me.
So, Funkhauser, how much time do we have?
We got another short and another long. So that's 8.
We got another short
14.
and another.
Carry the 3. We should be fine.
Okay, cool. Because I want to. The main point of having
unless you have to move your
Christian in
car.
today-
If you have to move your car, then you should do it now.
No, I have my own parking space. It's very, 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 very far from the building, but I got my own parking space.
Kudos.
Yeah.
It's a big
I feel
moment.
as though-
Bonus.
Yeah. And so, you know what was like the big deal to me when I climbed my way up to middle management? Like I'd always been like, Christian, maybe you deal with this. I don't know, but like people that are involved in areas of art that are turned into commerce frequently don't have health insurance. And I remember having to get my own health insurance because I was like basically a part-time schlub at about 5 different companies and gave me a great amount of freedom and autonomy and just enough money to cover all the things that I wanted to buy, but it did not come with health insurance, so I always had to buy my own. And I thought one day I'm going to have a job. I'm going to have a job, and that job is going to come with health insurance. And I got it. Haven't used it since I got it. Like not once, not once. But that to me was like the real.
It's a big moment. I
Yeah.
finally got dental, vision, and regular health insurance for the first time in probably 12 years that I wasn't paying for it myself. It's a big moment.
Like,
yeah.
No, it is a big moment.
Yeah, no,
and
it
then-
really is.
And then haven't used it at all, ever. Like, don't have time to go to the doctor. Like, I'll have, like, crazy bleeding stomach ulcers where, like, I'll wake up and someone will like, what you're describing is morning sickness. That's not normal for a dude. How come your stomach Like, I've got an intestinal jihad that happens every single morning. And people go, you need to see a doctor about that. I'm like, I don't have time. Ever since I got a job that could get me to a doctor and have it covered, I don't have freaking time to go. I've become, like I say many times on this show, a middle manager that can't manage his middle in many ways. Used to be yesterday on the show.
We become the butter!
I was like, before I wound up being like this guy that, had responsibilities and a title in front of his name, I was this guy that was like, I was a ripped-toned, shredded super athlete capable of lifting large amounts of weight and cutting through life's problems like a hot knife through butter. And Funkhauser succinctly put it, we've become the butter.
Yeah.
And we have. Sucks.
Yeah, you get the middle management middle spread.
Oh, God. It's the worst.
Yep.
Chained to a desk all day long. Like, I go to a chiropractor every single week. It's like they have them all over the country. It's called the Joint Chiropractic. Ironically, you don't need to have insurance to go or an appointment. But I wrenched my back really bad, and it was right across the street. And I go in, and man, shout out to Dr. AJ, who has taken lifelong pain away from me. But here's the thing about that. Like, I go in to treat a mixture of problems now. Half of them are from when I had a life, like my ankle and stuff from being all jacked up and from doing stupid stuff on skateboards and motorbikes and having busted it a gazillion times, and a problem that I've got in my wrist from when I used to play drums constantly. And they deal with those problems. And then the other half is because they deal with my back and my neck because I'm sat at a desk hunched over a computer urinating away hours of my life for the man every single day. So they're like, let's treat your childhood problems and then your grown-up problems now. I was like, oh, F me. I have grown-up problems.
Yeah, it's the
Sucks.
worst.
Oh, God. So let's do some news, Funkhauser, and then we'll get to Christian's story about Guru from Gangstar getting a little gangster over ketchup packets.
okay. Bow, 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 bow.
Are you doing work for Nikki Sixx again?
No, I was listening to your story. I was mesmerized by.
Allow me to confirm he was not listening to your story. I'm watching. I'm watching him from behind.
Hey, listen, you.
He's phoning. He's literally phoning it in.
Literally. No, I go to the chiropractor too.
Do you really?
Yeah.
So do I. It's a game changer. Anyone who doesn't,
it wasn't for me.
moron.
I went a couple times, and they're like, "No, you have to come every time. You come here every week." I'm like, "You're gonna feel like crap, and then you're gonna feel better." And I said,
"So where do you go?"
I don't. I used to. I don't.
You used to? Do you go? You go every week, Christian?
I don't go every week. I go when I should go every week, but I go when it starts to. It seems like we're gonna have a problem, which my chiropractor resents, but he gets it. My chiropractor's so gnarly that he's like one of these white people who got so spiritual in Indian style that he ended up turning himself Indian.
Huh? How does one do that?
I don't know. It's incredible. The before and after pictures are absolutely. It's gobsmacking. It's like he has he's got a turban and he's like turned his skin color slightly browner. It's incredible. He's become.
Whoa!
Yeah.
He's a white guy that wears a turban that managed to get his skin darker.
Yeah, no, it's like nothing I've ever seen. He's become like a full-on Indian dude who's just like the spiritual end. Because I live in LA, so you got to go spiritual on it too.
Sure.
So he's like a spiritual chiropractor, and he's incredible. He saved my life. Not saved my life, but he's made my life significantly
saved your
better.
back.
I've got a crushed sciatic nerve in my hip from a 6-hour DJ set that I did. Believe it or not. Of all things, I got a rave injury. So I ended up having to go to a chiropractor for the past like almost 30 years dealing with that.
When we first got our record deal, I'm a kid. We go shoot our first video, and there's BMX bikes around, and we're in the LA riverbed, and I do something on a bike, and I completely jack my ankle, and I'm on crutches for a little while, and we're doing some sort of like radio industry showcase at Brownie's in New York City, and I had to hobble in there on crutches and then go put on a show like a normal person. And I remember my manager saying, "Hey, we've got a tour coming up. Don't jack your ankle. Don't do anything stupid. Don't put too much into the show. Just sound good. These are radio people. They need to hear how your songs sound." And I was like, okay. And then immediately my manager walks away and the record label comes up to me. He was like, "Hey, that's the stupidest advice I've ever heard. You go for it. You do whatever you have to do to wow these people. Give it 100,000,000%. And you know what? If you wind up, we will pay the medical bills. We will fix it. We'll take care of you. Just you go out there and you get this no matter what it takes. We'll look after the damage." And so I went after it, gave it everything it took. Actually got some ads out of it, like radio stations started playing us. But as I'm walking up the stairs the other day and it's raining out and my ankle's killing me, I hear a pop. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. And that's the same thing that they promised to pay for all those years ago. Did they? Hell no, they didn't. Lying sons of bitches.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The Dumbing Up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
So, we should note to ourselves that Christian, such an interesting guy that when he comes in, we should entirely throw out the script and not bother saying we're going to do the news. If we have any time to get to the news after Christian James Hand's story of touring with Guru from Gangstar, we will. But I want you to have enough time to do this properly, Christian. So maybe a little background for those that don't know who Guru from Gangstar is and why he's so significant, and then along with the story, please.
Well, Guru from Gangstar are hugely significant hip hop organization because obviously Guru is gnarly if you don't know what that guy was all about, but also DJ Premier, who is his producer, is one of the foundational producers of hip hop. You've got coming out of New York at that time, you got him, and then the guys that are working with Hank Shockley and those guys, and they're creating like the sonic tapestry of Public Enemy's sound. And Premier is like bringing the jazzy looped MPC New York thing. Is he's one of those guys. So when he and Guru team up, it's an insane combination because Guru's voice is a weapon, like Chuck D's is, but there's more violence and innate like watch out built into Guru than Chuck D. Like Chuck D's letting you know, Guru's letting you know it might not go well. You know what I'm saying? And it's
beautiful way of describing it,
right? I mean, it's incredible. So I would go on YouTube right now and just pull up full clip and watch the video for that song, and that will give you everything you need to know about Gang Starr and Guru. So we were on the road, and they were playing with us, and it's just the two of those guys, Premier DJing and Guru doing his thing. And Guru is a bald-headed black dude who is so intense in everything. Like him saying hello to you backstage, you're like, man, is that a threat? Like I don't know, man. What just happened? Because I thought that went really well, you know. But also like a heart of gold dude. Like was really a lovely chap as well. And so Prince Paul and I, who's another foundational producer of the New York sound, 3 Feet High and Rising is I think his high watermark though. The stuff that he's done with Dan the Automator with the Handsome Boy Modeling School is also incredible. So he and I would hang out a lot. And one day he was like, yo, you want to go, grab some food real quick? And I'm like, yeah, we're in Paris, so the logical, obvious choice is Burger King. So we go to, because that's what you do when you're on the road with animals who don't eat good food. It was unbelievable. Like, bands are the worst. Hip-hop guys are as bad as band guys. Like, let's go to Burger King in Paris. So I'm like, okay. So we go to Burger King, and he and I are sitting there, and it's an incredible moment in your life when you're sitting at a Burger King with Prince Paul, and then Guru and Premier walk into the Burger King, and Paulie's like, yo, we're over here. If when you get your food, come and eat with us. So we're like, cool. So Premier goes and gets his, and then he comes back, and we're just sitting down. And Premier's got his own way of talking, which is individual to him. So I'm just laughing inside at this conversation that we're having because it's unbelievable to me. So he's doing his thing, and then Guru walks over. And he is so heated. And he's like, mother bleeping bleeps. And he's bleeping bleeps and bleeping owl bleeping. And we're like, what the? And it's like, when Guru was angry, that's the gnarliest version of Guru to begin with because he starts, it seems, at anger. So when he gets angry, it's like a whole new universal shift of what intense anger looks like. And he's like, these mother bleepers, son of a, I can't believe. And we're like, what? Paul's like, whoa. And Premier's just so used to this at this point because they're like Laurel and Hardy. So Paul's like, what's going on, man? And I'm thinking like somebody said some. And he looks at us and he's like, that these mother bleepers charged me for extra ketchup, son? We invented ketchup, son. Why am I paying extra for ketchup, son? And it's true. In Paris, they charge you 50 cents for each sachet of ketchup beyond the 2 that they give you. And Guru's got like 97 packets of ketchup on his tray. So it's cost him like an additional $8 to get his ketchup for this Saturday. And he is so pissed that America invented ketchup and the French have now decided to overcharge for it. It's changed. And I just was sitting looking at this guy like this might be one of the greatest moments of my entire life. Like, I don't know how. I'm going to photo this in my brain and forever I'm going to remember this day because I'm amazed he didn't write a song about it. I'm shocked that on the next Gang Starr record there wasn't something about ketchup packets in France, and it was he never did it because he was more pissed about that than I think the death of Martin Luther King at that point in that day. It had more sway over his life at that point than anything else that had ever happened. Period. It was incredible. So R.I.P. Guru, and thank you for that. It was truly one of my favorite moments of my entire life.
Oh
incredible!
My God, I laughed so hard I almost blacked out.
So good, an awesome.
Yeah, please don't kill the host.
I'll try not to.
Yeah,
amazing stories.
And then if you really want to dig deep into Gang Starr, into Guru, he then did a couple of records. I think there's 3 of them in the Jazzmatazz series, where he broke new ground by having real jazz musicians playing the songs and then him rapping over the top of them, and it's real dudes, and it's not samples, it's actually played instruments, and it's really incredible. So if you do have a passion for hip hop and really want to know the guys that were breaking ground before beats became more important than what you were saying, that those records and the Gang Starr records are definitely an incredibly rich place to start.
You know what I love about Christian James Hand? I'm just going to talk to Funkhauser like you're not here for a second,
Please,
Christian.
please.
Thing I love about Christian is the fact that he can come in here and he can talk like this about hip hop records, but then he can turn around and do the same thing about the early to middle ranging works of Paul Simon and all the works of Paul Simon. Or he can do it about Phil Collins, or he can do it about Ladysmith, Black Mambazo, or he can do it about the Police, or he can do it about the Minutemen. He knows literally everything about music. Like I have a level of musical knowledge that just from being a musician, I suppose, is a little bit deeper than a lot of folks. Tip of the iceberg, a pimple on the ass of what Christian James Hand knows. I always feel like I'm the dumbest guy in the room when Christian's around, especially when it comes to talking about music. Well, I also feel as though I am incredibly unheroic. Why? Because I was perfectly happy to watch him. See, it's interesting. Facebook reminds me what happened this time a couple years ago. And Facebook, when I woke up this morning, informed me that it was 5 years ago today. Hold on, I'm going to find the exact Facebook.
Doodly doot.
Doodly doot. Yeah. Do you have the time? No. We got all our stuff stolen. It was 5 years ago today that I posted this. I watched Christian James Hand save John from Houston, he's a mutual friend of ours, from a chicken sandwich last night. He leapt into action. I leapt into the next booth because there was regurgitated food involved. Chicken sandwich 1, McGovern 0. Next time they meet, the advantage will be his. Remember to chew. And today is the anniversary of Christian James Hand saving the life of our friend John McGovern right in front of my very eyes. Whoa. And so it's incredibly fitting that you're on the show today, but I've never seen anything like it. The word hero is bandied around a lot in this day and age, but I actually saw him save. I'm sitting there laughing at McGovern because that's sort of what you do. Hi, McGovern. And so is Christian. And all of a sudden, McGovern's like, ho, 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 ho. And we're like, what the hell's wrong with you? And I'm laughing. And Christian goes, are you choking, McGovern? And all of a sudden, like with military precision, he leaps up, grabs him from behind, and Heimlichs him. Chicken sandwich goes flying across the table, which I sidestep because ew. And there I am trying to avoid getting McGovern spit on me while he's concerned with saving McGovern's life. Yeah. It was amazing.
That was a close call, man. I really, he could have died. That was gnarly.
He could have died if you hadn't been there. If he'd just been having lunch with me, if he'd just been having dinner with me, dunzo.
It would have been over.
If you hadn't been there, I like to think that I'm a guy you can count on in the clutch, but if McGovern hadn't had you there with him, I think he would have been taking a dirt nap right about now.
That was rough, man. I remember sweeping all of the plates off the table. It was so dramatic, but I had to.
It was so dramatic.
AD and I were sitting on the other side of the table, and John was. It was like a diner booth, literally a diner booth. We were some diner. So John is on the other side, and AD and I are on this side talking. And then so I had to get over the table and behind him in the booth. Because he wasn't at a chair where I could perform the Heimlich correctly. So it was I had to sweep all the food and then spin him and then get my arms around him and then pull on. I had no idea how far into choking he actually was, because that's also gnarly. Because I did train as an EMT, so it wasn't.
Okay, now I don't feel as bad.
Yeah, it wasn't I suddenly possessed the skills to do the Heimlich maneuver from nowhere. I had been trained in it. So when I saw his face, I knew that he was legitimately. It wasn't one of those things where it went down the wrong pipe, in quotes. This dude was choking to death.
No, well, I remember you going, "Are you choking, McGovern?" And I just see him do the closest thing to a nod that he could manage, and it was it was on. It was but okay, so I don't feel as much of a freaking slacker in the saving lives department because I know you trained as an EMT.
Yeah, I was trained.
But that's just that's a whole other story. All right, I'll bite. When did you train as an EMT, Christian? Were you trying to meet David Lee Roth in New York City? What the hell happened with that?
I was in college in New York, and I decided that because one of the things that I really, without wanting to get too philosophical about it, I really do think that your responsibility as an alien that's been put into a meat spacesuit to travel around this planet and do incredible stuff for as long as you're allowed to. Your responsibility is to accumulate as much knowledge and as many stories as you can before your game is over. So with that,
way to live.
With that in mind, you got to learn everything you can. And I was at college and I was like, oh man, I wonder what being an EMT is all about. So I took the class and I did the training and I took the tests and I became a first responder and I did ambulance stuff. And I did it long enough for me to realize that I didn't want to do it anymore because you become really, part of you has to shut down. Like the gallows humor of the ambulance is rough, man, because eventually you have to callous up because otherwise your spirit will be crushed by the things that you see. Mm-hmm. So I knew that I didn't want to lose that part of me, honestly. So I stopped doing it. But up until then, it was incredible experiences of like saving people's lives and being at accident sites and seeing just how quickly you can lose everything. Like in one split second, and it's such a cliche, but it's so true. And when you see that as a job, it sort of changes the way that you look at life. And that's why I can't live the life of a normal person because it's a waste of your journey to do that. Like if you're not following your muse or your passion if your passion is numbers and you want to be an accountant, God bless. But if your passion is not numbers and you're an accountant, stop doing that because guess what? You're going to die. Mm. And I don't ever want to die with a what if. Ever. And that's why I did it, and I accumulated as much knowledge as I can, and I continue to try to do that. It's to me, it's one of your responsibilities as like an alien visiting this incredible planet.
Are the stories about EMTs getting the best drugs true?
I mean, you can get anything you want. They may not be the best.
Answer as we're running out of a show where I'm in the room with a guy that's had sex with porn stars on private jets and a guy that saved people's lives, toured with the Wu-Tang Clan, and was an EMT at one stage in the game. Never before have I been the least interesting person in the room in such a humongous and terrifying way, and I feel privileged for it. Thank you so much, Christian. We'll have you back anytime you want to come on. Thank you so much for hanging out.
You let me know. Thank you, guys.
Even when they don't deserve it. And sometimes you feel good about yourself for being a better person and doing that. Well, this is not one of those times. I don't think you realize what's on my mind. I've been too nice for way too long. I think I want you to know just what is going on.